Michelle Niemeyer Wellness was born from a severe case of lawyer burnout. After more than 20 years of law practice in both law firm and solo practitioner settings, litigation attorney Michelle Niemeyer found herself overweight, unhappy, and unmotivated. Her quest to recover her youthful enthusiasm led to weight loss, physical fitness, and more importantly, a keen awareness of tools to maintain focus, address stress, and live a more well-rounded and healthier life, and to gain a new perspective on the concept of time. In short, she learned to thrive. Along the way, Michelle went back to school at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition in New York and earned a certification as a professional health coach. Michelle's exploration of motivation, wellness, stress management, neurolinguistic programming, and positive psychology continues to this day and informs her speaking, consulting, and course offerings. Michelle consults with businesses and individuals to help them identify ways to expand the impact of their time while they improve their lifestyles, enhance productivity and happiness, and improve their health and quality of life. At a time when overworked professionals like doctors, lawyers, educators, consultants, accountants, and sales professionals face challenges like alcoholism, substance abuse, anxiety, and depression, as well as high rates of divorce and attrition from their professions, learning how to bend time and thrive is a win.
Michelle Niemeyer, how are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'll have the full intro, your bio after we do the conversation. But one of the things I'm excited to talk to you about today is, you're going to be talking about something that is a real struggle with me right now, which is not just time management, it's energy management, it's prioritization, goal setting to a certain degree, especially goal setting within just the getting things done kind of idea of productivity. So I'm really, really happy to have you, not just because I think it's going to be such a benefit to the audience, but also because I'm selfish. This is where I get to really leverage having a podcast, is because I get to have a really cool, like, coaching call in front of everybody, because I got all kinds of things going on. So with that little tee up, tell us about who you are. I know attorney by trade, but then you at some point, I guess there was some burnout that set in, and you flip the script and turn that could be negative into something that is now becoming your life's work. So who is Michelle Niemeyer?
Okay, and I'll try to keep the short version of this so we can get you a good coaching episode.
Awesome.
So I was a lawyer for 33 years, and about 20 years into that, I got very burned out. So the burnout is very much in my rearview mirror at this point. However, part of, I believe, that burnout, or a result of that burnout, was that I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called PBC. And it attacks the microscopic bile ducts in your liver. It's a very rare disease, and it has very, very scary stuff about it if you go online. And so that sort of was my come to Jesus moment, where I went, I got to do something here, or I could be dead in 10 years. I could need a transplant in 10 years. It was that serious. And so I take a drug that they have for this, which thankfully works for me and helps, but I also made major, major changes in my lifestyle. And in studying and learning a lot about holistic health and how to deal with autoimmunity, I got a health coaching certification. And I started really working with helping lawyers first. I created some continuing education programs to help lawyers, like I had been, prevent themselves from becoming burned out professionals who get themselves sick in the process. So that's how I got to this. What I learned in the process was that a lot of what was life-changing for me was not just about how many hours you work, or how much time, how stressed out you are, or what you're eating, or any of that, but it was kind of all of that. What I realized is there was a lot going on where I didn't have full clarity. And one thing I've realized is most people who are very burned out, they stop feeling. They literally feel dead inside. They stop feeling the joy and the happy parts. They stop, you know, they they accomplish the big thing and they just go on to the next thing and the next thing, and they stop even feeling the joy of having done something great or even recognizing that they did something great. It's just all a burden. And so that was one piece of it, was how do you get out of that, right? How do you get that joy back? And that is really a big cornerstone of what I've realized, is that when we can reclaim that joy, and if you were to go to my website, you'd literally see children jumping and like with the water behind them, it looks like, you know, they're just having the time of their lives. Um, Reclaiming that joy, that feeling that you had when you were a kid and you won the race, or you learned something for the first time, or, you know, those things that really gave you just this intense feeling of pleasure and accomplishment and pride and happiness. When you can remember what the elements are of the kinds of things that gave you those feelings, and we're all different, so not everybody has the same things light them up. I call it the sparks that light us up. When we can find out what those sparks are, when we can get to that piece of ourselves and how to, you know, what are the kinds of things that give us that? Is it being in a feeling of community with your friends and your family? Is it being physical and a really great workout and having beaten your time on a race? Or, you know, we all have our stuff. So whatever it is for you that gives you that sense of joy and accomplishment and a great feeling, you figure that out, and then you can make a point of getting that into your day proactively instead of leaving it to chance or just kind of giving up on it and thinking, now I'm grown up, I don't get to have fun anymore.
You know, it's okay. So something you just, I mean, that you just kind of described me in a lot of ways in that. And one of the biggest ones that you just mentioned that I am dealing with right now is, and by the way, audience, this is kind of hard for me to admit, but I told Michelle before we got on, I'm always very transparent with you, my audience. I'm the guy with the podcast, the Improve Always and Always guy that's supposed to be jumping up and down when I get out of bed, clapping my hands, all that, but I'm not all the time. And right now it's one of those times where, Michelle, I'll be honest with you, I've lost a lot of what I articulate as ambition, as goal setting, as the desire to achieve, simply because it's just I am numb and dead and indifferent to almost any sense of accomplishment. I don't even look, and I'm a goal setter. I'm a Nick Saban, put the process in place, focus on the first 7 seconds off the ball, and James Clear, Atomic Habits, all these things. That is the life I have lived. But right now, starting this year, I have my 5-year journal here that probably has not been written in at least, I don't, consistently all year. I've just been
Hmm.
sporadically writing in it. I'm a journaling guy that always writes. A lot of the habits that I usually pursue each and every day toward keeping my mind sharp. Now, I still have my morning routine. Health and wellness is where I'm always dialed in. I will always work out 6 to 7 days a week, twice a day, watch what I eat. That part, in fact, it seems like that's the only part of my life right now that I remain excited about, just because I'm getting older. And so it's kind of fun to try to slow the clock as much as possible. But professionally, and the things that I set out to achieve, um, I'm just kind of numb. And just to kind of finalize and land this plane so that maybe you can get me some probing questions. One of the things I have noticed this year about myself, and maybe I noticed it before, but I've articulated now in my head better than ever, is like the minute that I I put monetary value to whatever goal I'm trying to pursue, I'm out. It fades away. It's like, for some reason, putting like this podcast. If I had started this podcast and said, you know what, I want to have $1 million a year in passive income by doing a podcast. The minute that I did that, there would be no podcast. It's weird. It's like, that is my kryptonite. If I attach monetary value to any pursuit I have, it just completely eliminates it, which is kind of weird. It makes me think there's something in me. And I do know this about myself. I have a scarcity mindset a lot of times. I have to fight for a mindset of abundance. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have a mindset that every single thing I do needs to either be just doing. I love doing nothing these days. Those are my happy places. I can do nothing better than anybody else in the whole world. I have no problem with it. But whenever I am doing something, I think it needs to be something educational, productive, fulfilling. Otherwise, like, just doing things for the pure sake of enjoyment, with the exception of traveling with my wife. I have no hobbies. I don't do anything. So anyway, I know that's a lot. So help me. and hopefully somewhere in the audience there's somebody that said, oh my God, I'm just like Jason. I've got those same issues.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, let's dive into those sparks that light you up.
Okay.
Okay. If you were to sit here now and just, relax, kind of clear your mind, and I'm going to ask your audience to do this with us. We'll do a little bit of a guided meditation here.
Love it.
Um, just close your eyes and think about a time when you just felt like unbridled joy. This could be sometime in your childhood, it could be at your wedding, it could be, it could be anything. It depends. Like I said, people are different. So whatever that is for you. And while you're in that place, really visualize it and feel it in your body. And if there were sounds around you, if there was music, if there were other people, who were the other people around you? What were you doing? What, if you can, try to really dig down into what was it about that moment that made you feel this incredible joy? What was it about it? Was it something that you were doing? Was it something that you were experiencing? Did you accomplish something? Were you recognized for something? Did you perhaps build something and see what you built and see the finished product? Were you able to solve a problem or a puzzle or something that had been hard for you, and now you did that and you were excited about having done it? And think about, maybe another time where you felt really proud, really like you just accomplished something incredible and it was something you felt really good about. And what was that? Again, good. Like, feel the details of that moment. What was it that you were proud of and why? What was it specifically that made you so proud? Was it because you overcame something? Was it because you did better than everybody else at something? Was it that your parents were proud of you, or that your family was excited because you'd accomplished something that they made them proud? Um, as you think about those moments, can you tell me about those?
Yes, there's two that leap to mind. One's more of a leisure enjoyment. The other is more, I guess you'd call it professional. So one of them is whenever I won a seat on my local city council. I was young. I wasn't supposed to win. Um, it was a huge fight that went to a runoff, and I worked my ass off to win that election. And it wasn't even so much that because I wanted to be on city council so bad. It was just like a reward for just an unbelievable amount of hard work. And you don't get paid on our city council. We're a town of just a little over 100,000 people. So, I mean, again, it was all purpose driven. So it checked a lot of boxes that really kind of light me up. The next one was thinking about, I guess it was last year, close to this time, I took my oldest daughter, just the two of us, went to Aspen and we rode up to the Maroon Bells. And it was just like the most perfect father daughter day I could have ever fathomed. And the reason why I enjoyed it so much is one, it felt good to be out in the clean air. I'm obsessed with Colorado and the Rocky Mountains. I love that. So I felt like I was doing something healthy. I was spending time with my oldest daughter. My daughters are the center of my universe, along with my wife. But the girls, anytime I can spend time with them, I really enjoy that. So it checked a lot of boxes. And so, but those are the two things I think that really, as I look back, were like, oh, those are just some amazing times.
So when that feeling you had, I'm going to go to the local city council thing. So you'd
Okay.
worked really hard.
Mm,
You were the underdog.
mm-hmm.
You'd fought for it
Mm-hmm.
and you won
Mm-hmm.
and you felt a really good sense of accomplishment. Was there a sense of anything tied to a team that you were part of or a group of people that helped you with that?
Yeah, there were some local folks here that had really just gone to the mat for me to knock on doors and to support me and to believe in me. That, in fact, it was really cool because when I was sworn in, I don't really have a very good relationship with my father and my stepmother, and so I had no family that came into town for my swearing in. Yet the council chambers were packed with all of these friends and supporters that were not like close best friends. These were like 70 and 80-year-old community members that had done all this work. And so that to me was the most overwhelming thing, was these were people that I knew because of this election that were ecstatic and so proud that I had won that race, that it was really gratifying. It probably meant more to me that they were there than uh, my family, to be honest with you.
Hmm. And with your daughter, the time with your daughter,
Mhm.
was there, you mentioned you love the environment, you got to spend time. What was special about that time with your daughter? I assume it's not the only time you've spent time with your oldest daughter, but that came up as the most like incredible moment. So,
That's a great question, and I think it's because her mother and I divorced about 10 years ago, and she definitely dealt with it harder than her sister. And while I have always had a very close relationship with my girls and kind of been that um, constant force in their lives, Rylan, that's the oldest daughter, it was tough. There was more strain on our relationship. Our relationship was always good, but not great. I was always, during those times, much closer to her sister. And I think it was the first time where she and I in a long time could just laugh and talk and really just enjoy just being the two of us and no one else around. So I think that's it. It was almost just kind of like something we just had not had that kind of connection in beyond just the surface level, hugs, I love you, and being there, but something just really, we just totally enjoyed the time with one another, not just it's Aspen and it's the Maroon Bells and who wouldn't enjoy it and good food. No,
mhm.
we could have in that moment been anywhere and truly enjoyed one another's company. And yeah, I think that was what it was.
Well, that's beautiful.
Well,
So, are you seeing a pattern?
yeah, I think so. I think so. Tell me, what do you notice?
Well, what I'm seeing is that you feel a great deal of satisfaction in moments when you feel connected,
Mm-hmm.
when you feel like you're recognized or accepted in
Mm.
a moment that, in the one moment you'd worked really hard But, you also had the support of this group of people who all came for you when it came time to be sworn in.
Mhm.
And in the other moment, you sort of had, you may have not have had the closest time with your daughter for a while, but she now is with you, connected with you. You feel good about that.
Yeah.
And, do you see, I mean, I can guess more than see that hosting a podcast is another way that you would have people connect with you. You can offer something to them. You can bring something to people that you hope to feel a connection from.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think you absolutely.
Okay, so when you have, and that's just, one of, we could spend days doing this, and I have a downloadable guided meditation similar to what we just did, and journaling prompts, and I'll make sure that you know how to get to that so that you can do that. But the general concept of this idea of finding the sparks that light us up is that we can proactively bring those things into our lives. Now, you're not going to run for a political office every day, obviously, but you can choose to be involved in things where you have contact with people who you're working with in a teamwork sort of way to do something for the better good, whatever that might be. You can pick up the phone and call your daughters. You can make things happen during your day that give you that spark. And when you start seeing that spark, what's going to happen? We're all drawn to the things we do for various reasons, whatever those reasons are. Um, we also have innate things in us that we need. We may be, I'll give you an example. I worked with someone who was a very, very physical guy, really fit. He it just, he's very kinesthetic. He's a guy who just needed to move his body. He was married. He had a 3-year-old son, and his wife was a personal trainer. And they had a family value of teaching their son that exercise was a normal part of life. And so every morning they had started, and I say in air quotes, working out with their 3-year-old son.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's not the same kind of workout that gets a late 30s guy's blood pumping
Right.
and his body feeling like he's had a good workout. And he had stopped his regular workouts and wasn't doing that. And I learned that in his moments that lit him up, it was surfing. And he lived near the beach. And he'd chosen to live near the beach because he wanted to be able to surf, take breaks from work. But when I asked him, when's the last time you went surfing? He said, about 6 months. And so his homework that day was to talk to his wife about a way that they could work surfing into his schedule. And so what they started doing was she would do the workout with the 3-year-old and he surfed in the morning. He doubled his sales call volume, and by the end of 12 weeks with me, he doubled his business.
Wow.
And it started with waking his body up again. Because for him, that was that spark he needed. That was the thing that made him pumped. And then he came home and he got on the phone and he was excited. His energy was good. You know how that is. Your energy is everything.
Hmm.
So it's not just about picking up the phone and making the calls. Now he was making twice as many of the calls and with a better mindset and from a better place. And it made all the difference. So, and he got more interested in what he was doing again because he was more engaged. So, one of the things that I really strongly recommend is when you find, you figure out what is that thing that really kind of triggers my happiness. And it's going to be simple. It's going to be something really simple, like having a connection one on one with someone like you did with your daughter. And sometimes that means slowing down a bit, pulling back a bit, having making sure that those moments happen that are true connection versus I need to call you to tell you about this and then I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes so much sense. And my wife reminds me of this all the time that, okay, so I am very reclusive. I stay isolated. I'm usually either around a lot of people or no people. Like right now, I'm up here in my home office, and my podcast kind of gives me an outlet to the to the outside world. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
can go days where, with the exception of talking to my wife, I just don't talk to anybody for like long periods of time. I don't have close friends, which I was kind of, I got to work on that because I was just reading about super agers and how connection with other people, and we know this, that, being in social settings is so important, and that's not me. But I have to be honest with myself I used to always say, and I still to some degree say, that I'm an introvert disguised as an extrovert. Because when you see me in a crowd or at a party or something, like, I have no problem. I'm going to go up and speak and do all the right things with it. Like, my goal is always to know way more about Michelle Niemeyer at that party than Michelle knows about me. I want you to be the center of attention. I want you to feel good in our conversation. And I'm genuine about it. And, and I do know that I need to be in front of people, talking to people and engaging with them. One of the things that you're going to find after this podcast, and one of the reasons why I don't put any false humility out there, I'm good at this because I connect with my guests. And I have had
Yeah.
some, I won't call any names, but after over 500 episodes, I've had some people that were kind of tough to connect with, but I do. It is my superpower, is connecting with human beings. And then you mentioned something that was probably more profound than you can even realize. So you said that the acceptance part about it. So my stepmother once told me when I was a kid that everybody wondered why my brothers and sisters didn't hate me, and not to have a pity party for me on this episode. We don't have to turn this into a full blown therapy session, but it was one of those moments where I carried it with me for the rest of my life. I always, and there were just little things said by my dad and my stepmom throughout the course of my life, because I was the magnetic kid, the class favorite, and all this stuff, and the other kids weren't, and it really seemed to bother them, especially my stepmom. And so she would always make sure to take me down a notch. And so as I became an adult, like, and I've gotten better at this, a lot better at 50 years old. But I'll look back on so much of my career and many people. If you and I met, Michelle, the first thing I would want you to know is, I'm okay. I'm a good guy. I'm a nice person. I'm not just talking to you because I want something from you. I'm not a con artist. I really am a good guy, and I need you to know that. And I would approach every single thing like that. And so when you said, like, it was almost like when I won the city council race, it was like all these people saying, and again, not to be confused with needing self aggrandization, or like I don't do the podcast because I think I'm going to be the next Joe Rogan. I would hate that. I don't want people to recognize me. In fact, to me, the height of success is being some author that nobody knows what you look like, but's really successful, so that you can pick and choose when you're famous. But so it's not like I wanted like this glory. It was just this moment where people said, that's a good guy. I know he'll represent our interests. And that was it. That's really all I want from anyone. So so again, yeah, I think you really tapped into something there that was probably more profound than you realize.
Well, and I see there's another pattern here, and I'm gonna go there with
Bring
you.
it.
Um, what I heard you saying, and I get it. I've seen this in my own history. You made a point of telling me that as a council member you didn't get paid.
Yeah, that's right. I want you to know I'm in it for the right
And
reasons.
you want to make sure that I know that you're doing it for
Yep.
because you're a good guy
Yep.
and not because you care about power or not because you care about
Right.
money.
Right.
And you also told me that when you attach monetary aspects to something that you do, that your interest in it goes away.
Yep.
And I'm guessing that's because you feel like you will be a target in
Mhm.
this whatever this baggage was that was created for you in
Yeah.
your upbringing,
Yeah.
that you learned, and I can tell you I somewhat share this experience. You learned that being the good student, the kid that people liked, was something that it wasn't safe for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it wasn't safe because when you came home, you were targeted for that.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you learned to dull your shine, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak,
Mm-hmm.
and hide because you didn't want to be seen in a way that made you a target.
Yeah. Wow.
And, that situation carries through. We don't just get rid of those deep seated psychological fears. And so, what can happen with that is that can become a resistance or a reluctance to, for instance, successfully monetize something that we're working really hard on because we don't want to look like, there was probably talk in your family about money doesn't grow on trees, and hardworking people versus those rich people, or whatever that
Oh yeah.
story was,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of us were raised in that. And that can cause you to, again, not feel safe if you find yourself in a position where all of a sudden you're making $1 million a year on your podcast.
Right. Right.
And, some people might look at that and go, oh, I wonder what he's doing that he's making $1 million a year on his podcast. What is he up to?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's we're grown-ups now.
Right.
And to some degree, the most important thing is awareness with these things, And so what I try to help people do is get to a place where these things they recognize those parts of things, right? Those mindset issues, which we can shift. And it is possible for us to recognize that being successful at something does not have to mean that we're going to get emotionally battered at home because someone at home doesn't feel comfortable with your success.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not living in that home anymore.
Right.
So, but there may still be a little bit of fear. Like if I become this, am I going to still be wanted by the people who are around me?
Yeah.
Because you've been taught on some very visceral level that it's not safe.
Yeah.
So, that's something to just be aware of that so that when those feelings come up, instead of attaching to it, oh, I got to pull back. And this isn't, I never really wanted to do that anyway, or whatever it is that goes on in your head where you lose interest, to really dive into that. Why do I feel that way?
Okay.
And what are the positive things, because there's so many great positive things that can come that bring something to other people. By being successful, you're bringing something to other people that's helping them.
Yeah.
You're spreading all kinds of great ideas and information into the world. And when you do that, there's nothing wrong with being compensated for creating that opportunity for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I've got a question for you. All right, so now let's
Yeah.
take it, and this may, and look, if I put more out there, if you go, Jason, that's just going to take way longer. You have to engage me. This, I completely respect that. I completely respect it. So one of the things I'm really interested in is the whole idea of managing my time in such a way so that I have my highest, the thing, I find my spark at the highest and most productive moment, doing something that actually yields good output. And let me explain to you the situation that I've kind of found myself in professionally and where the
Mm-hmm.
real struggle is. So I'm on the board of directors for a holding company, and my role is the chief governmental affairs officer. So essentially what I do is I handle all of our policy and everything. I have an office in Washington, D.C. This is my real job, if you will. And uh, and so and as part of that, as part of our advocacy, I've stood up our foundation, stood up our uh, C3 nonprofit. The foundation is a C4. The nonprofit is the C3, and then also our political action committee. And what I have found, like when I'm in Washington D.C. and I'm speaking to lawmakers about what we're trying to do, and it's healthcare related, it's access to healthcare and trying to solve for some of the problems we see with health deserts and rural healthcare being the way it is, and it's really tough for rural hospitals. So we're trying to solve for a lot of those things with a private sector engagement from huge insurance carriers. Won't bore you with any more detail than that, but that's kind of what we're doing. And what I find is I am on fire when I'm sitting in a lawmaker's office telling them what we're trying to achieve. Where I just want to just go beat my head against the wall is whenever it comes down to the mundane legalities of the nonprofit, trying to figure out where are we going to get the money, how are we going to fundraise, the more tactics of it. I am not a day-to-day operations guy. I am much more, if I know the strategy, if I know the goal, put me in front of someone, and as long as I believe in it and I believe in the mission, then I'm your best ambassador, your best crusader, because I'm going to get the message across, and I'm able to use again, like I think what is my superpower is I'm going to connect with you. You're going to know I'm genuine, and we're going to have a good rapport. And so then I'm going to leverage that into helping you understand this greater mission I'm trying to achieve. So what I'm trying to do right now is, one, it's overwhelming, and that I'm essentially running 4 different organizations at once, all kind of in startup mode, that it's pulling me away. Everything's feeling dull, like I mentioned when we first started, and
Hmm.
indifferent, simply because whenever when I'm in the moments that I really thoroughly enjoy for the cause and for the mission and for the board and what we're trying to achieve, I know that I'm going to end up back in the office trying to do all the mundane budget calls and setting up and not having answers to, folks, if you think it's hard starting a startup, and I've done that, startups are hard. A startup foundation is very hard, because now you don't have a product that somebody's going to go, oh, that's a great product. Instead, you're going to be looking to the charity of others and prove to them that your mission is sound. So anyway, so that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now.
Okay. So, do you have any help?
I do. I actually do. And we are very well. The good news is we have a lot of resources, and I do have great help. I just hired a what's basically become a kind of a chief of staff. I hired her as my communications manager for doing a lot of outreach and stuff, but she's really turning into more of like a chief of staff. So yes, I do have help.
Okay. So, one of the things that happens a lot with people who are burned out, and especially with achievers,
Hmm.
is they tend to want to do everything.
Yep.
And if there are aspects of what you do that, if the most important thing you can do, obviously, in this kind of a role is to make change. That's why you're there, right? Your whole purpose in being there and being on the Hill and having the access and meeting with legislators, et cetera, is to make sure change happens. And if you're the person who has the really good skills at connecting with these people and sitting down and talking with them and being excited and bringing your excitement to them and getting their buy in and involvement, then that's where you should be.
Okay.
So, part of what I really try very hard to teach people is that often, very, very often, we wait way too long to delegate tasks that shouldn't be ours. Because if you're not into the budgeting stuff, if you're not into the organizational things, or you want the research so that you can express certain things, but the actually sitting down and finding the numbers and doing the research isn't what you're excited about, that's the place where you want to find some support and get other people to be doing that part of the work.
Yeah.
And if you allow them the latitude to bring their skills, if you complement your own skills with people whose skills are filling those gaps, then you can trust that you're going to have great people. I used to work in Washington D.C. as well. My first law job was there, and I had a mentor who worked across the street. He was the founder of a large, not really a large law firm, a very specific boutique law firm. It's really interesting. Um, and he used to tell me, he had this great advice. He said, I don't ever want to be in a meeting in my office where I'm not the dumbest guy in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. I
and
like that.
and his and the idea being that he started the firm, but he hired Supreme Court clerks, he hired like a brilliant administrator. Everybody who worked in his office were really, really smart,
Yeah.
and they might not have been experienced when they got to him. Some of them were, but they were really, really smart, and they were people who he could develop into being the best at whatever piece of it they were taking on.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you want to give people the latitude to show you that they're the smartest person in the room at the budget
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
at managing these different organizations. And, that might be a goal to get to, is to create a circumstance where you find yourself doing the part that you're great at, and you're managing other people who are really great at their own realm. And when I say managing them, I don't mean micromanaging them
Mhm.
and picking up their tasks,
Right.
which is, unfortunately, what often happens is we feel responsible for all of it. So we try to do all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now I want to touch on your wheelhouse, and this has been so helpful. But I hope that was beneficial to the audience, and you've given me a lot to think about. But what fits right in here too is with your concept that you've titled or coined the art of bending time, which I think it's great job on wording, because instinctively what you're getting at. But I would like you to describe the philosophy of the art of bending time, because I think anyone listening to this always feels like they've got more to do than they do time. So
Mhm.
how do you do that? How do you bend time to your will?
Right. And the concept comes from the fact that we all have the same amount of time, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got 24 hours in a day, everybody's got 7 days in a week. Some people barely make it out of bed every day, and some people are running multiple organizations and creating incredible things that are making the world a better place. So, what's the difference? And part of it is, in my opinion, being able to leverage what you're best at, what you're most excited about, what lights you up, and that those sparks, you're going to get those sparks in those meetings, in that connection. I can see it on your face when you talk about it. When you get that, you get the sparks that light you up, you get the fuel that's going to move you through your day, and you're going to be more productive, more engaged, and better at what you're doing. That in and of itself is bending time.
Mm.
If you're spending your time doing things that bore you, that drain your energy, that make you feel stuck, like the budget,
Yeah.
whatever,
Right.
that is something that for you doesn't light you up. Somebody else, it's going to light them up.
Yeah.
So when you can, find that stuff that lights you up, you're sort of like supercharging the value of the time you're spending, because you're getting better results, and it's fueling you instead of draining you.
So that probably explains why somebody like an Elon Musk or some of these other entrepreneurs can be the CEO of 5 different businesses. And then where does flow state come into this? Because to me, it's like if you enjoy something, like I do know when I'm in a flow state, it's recognizable and time disappears. I love it. So is finding the spark, is that one of those things that will kind of help you get into that flow state as well, and then make time a little more
It
seamless?
can. It can, because when you're doing the things that make you feel happy and engaged and
Yeah.
like you want to be there, it's going to be easier to be, as I say, be here now,
Yeah.
be present in the moment, and be focused on it. The other piece of flow state is that we are much more highly productive just generally in a flow state than outside of a flow state. And one of the things I tell everybody I work with, and I have a character I use in my program. I call it Time Suck Ninja. And my
Mm,
goal is for everybody to be a Time Suck Ninja.
I like it.
So, one form of time suck for you is that work that you really don't like that drags you down instead of bringing you up. Another would be distractions like notifications. So if you're in a flow state and you have email notifications popping up on your computer screen, and you have text message notifications popping up on your phone, and you in the back of your head you know that something's going to happen soon and you need to pay attention for it, whatever that thing is that's interrupting your flow state. There's evidence that says that once your flow state is interrupted, it takes you 15 minutes to get back to it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Think about how much time you waste if your phone pings and you even just grapple with the idea, I need to check my phone.
Yep.
Now you're not in flow state anymore. So one of the things I tell people is get rid of the notifications. And instead of having the notifications, you make it, first of all, you make it clear to the people around you that when you're doing focus work, you're doing focus work. So that might mean you don't take their phone call right away, but you'll call them back when you're done. It might mean you're not going to respond to their text message right away. It might mean that your door is closed. But when the people around you are educated to that, they stop bugging you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and that even goes for clients. In law, a lot of times clients expect you to be responsive right away. They expect to have your attention because they're paying you a lot of money and they feel like they should be the first priority. And I never had clients who were demanding my time immediately because I made it very clear to my clients that I will get back to them when they email me or when they text me. But when I'm doing focus work, I'm doing that work in a way that I can get it done faster and at a higher level of quality for them. And when I'm interrupted, it's costing them money for the fact that it takes me longer.
Right.
So I don't want to put them in the position of charging me more or getting lower quality work because I'm being interrupted. So please forgive me if I don't check my emails more than twice a day.
I think that's so smart. And one of the things I just had this conversation in DC last week where I was mentioning that with the exception, like I just was listening to a podcast with Jamie Dimon, and he was talking about his first day at JP Morgan. And he looked around, he said, the first thing I need is I want an office right in the middle of the floor and I need an assistant. And I thought the assistant, I was like, first of all, we live in a world now where no matter how high you are on the food chain of whatever organization, so many people expect to have direct access to you. It's insane. And I am learning that, like, for example, the professional that I told you that I've hired that's kind of becoming more of a chief of staff, I am learning that a gatekeeper is good because there's just so much. And I've always been, because I want to interact and I never want people to think that you can't have direct access to me. But it's one of the things that has been a challenge for me hiring that personal assistant, even a virtual assistant, to forward my phone calls to, is because so many people these days, they just expect that they have direct access because we are so easily accessible. And so I'm trying to build some of those barriers and kind of that moat around me for the sake of my time, not because I'm so important, just because there's only so much time to go around.
Right. And for someone like you and the things you've told us today, you have a need to feel like people think you're a nice guy.
100%.
So you don't want people to think, oh, he's putting me off. He doesn't want to talk to me directly. But you can make that clear to people by explaining, I'm highly distractible. I make a point of having chunks of time where I do focus work. I have other people check my messages, but trust me, that doesn't mean I don't care about you.
Right.
I'll get back to you immediately as soon as I can. And when I do, you'll have my full attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's big
Yeah.
because how many times have you had a meeting with someone where you're sitting there trying to have a connected conversation and their phone is ringing and they're answering it, or
Yeah.
looking at their phone or whatever it is that, there's nothing more frustrating.
Yep.
And they feel that coming from you if you're doing those things as well. So, it's not a bad thing. It's the trick is in how you express it to people.
All right. So now, and I know this is going to vary person to person,
Mhm.
but if you had kind of that 20-80 rule, 20% of the people to get 80% of the work done, here's kind of how they design their day with deep work. Like I guarantee you, a lot of people hearing on this podcast, I mean, I'm sure that I did a Cal Newport episode at some point. I'd love to have Cal on, but they hear deep work, like, well, what the heck does that mean? Or flow state. So you've got the whole day. You're right. We all have the same amount of time. Generally speaking, a productive day, taking some of these principles like finding the spark, knowing what you should be doing, where you're going to be the most productive. How do you map out a day for that person that's really trying to put some parameters on it? And then also, are you someone who would give them permission to say, look, if your battery is drained at 3:30, but you've 5x'd from 12 to 3, it's okay. The work you try to do because you feel guilty because you're not working until 6 or 6:30 is not going to be that quality. So back off, just make sure you front load your priorities. Like what does that day look like with kind of those concepts in
Oh,
mind?
and it doesn't have a particular look because everybody's different.
Sure.
And this is where just what you described. For instance, if you're that person who crashes in the afternoon, that may be the time that you should look at your emails.
Yeah.
Because look, and I've recommended to people, if you're the one who looks at your emails, maybe you have an assistant who does it and gets rid of the junk first. But I don't have that right now. What I do, I actually take my inbox and I sort it by sender. And when I sort it by sender, I can delete 80% of the junk in my email box without ever looking at it because it's garbage.
Right.
And I know it's garbage. I don't even have to look at it to know it's garbage if it came from Crate and Barrel or from whatever, right?
Right. Great idea.
So I can't tell you how much time I save by just doing that one thing. And of course, if you had an executive assistant who's doing that for you, they can do that for you and they're saving that time. But just doing something like that, that's brainless work. That's the thing that you can do in the moment when you're like, okay, I don't really have to think much. And then you get to the ones that matter and you go, okay, here's the 3 that need a response from me. Maybe one of them requires some work and you put it on your calendar for tomorrow morning when you're bright and cheery and ready to do research.
Yeah.
Or maybe you pick up the phone and you're charged by those conversations. So now you're fueling, you're not depleting by having that conversation with someone that it's going to fuel you to have that connection. So a lot of that has to do with, first of all, what are your natural rhythms? And one thing I do with clients in this case is I actually have them do a journal for a week or two,
Okay.
where it's basically an energy journal. It's a journal where they track what they're doing, what time is it, what kind of work am I doing, and how do I feel?
Okay.
And then, like, Mark, when did you eat? Have you had breaks? That kind of thing. Because the other thing is, there are some things that, depending on who you are and how your system works, for some people, they may be able to recharge by just walking outside and taking a walk around the block
Yeah.
or doing some push ups behind their desk
Yeah.
or, you know, getting out and making a personal phone call with somebody who lights you up and having 10 minutes that makes you feel like you're not at work for a little bit, you know. But that's going to depend on you specifically, on what your life is like and the things around you. You may not, let's say you're a parent with children and you have to drop your kids off at a certain time and you really can't get into the office until 9 or 10 o'clock. But your morning is your productive time. How do you handle that? Maybe there are things you can do during that time frame. Maybe you just decide, listen, my children, and having that quality time with them in the morning when they talk about school in the car or whatever that is, that's really important to me.
Yeah.
And when you talk about priorities, and this is where I am a very big detractor of the concept of work-life balance. I feel like work-life balance and this whole idea that we can somehow lobotomize our lives into compartments is complete and utter BS.
Yeah.
It's an absolute fallacy, and it causes people to feel like failures when they shouldn't. So, if you have little kids and you have to take your little kids to work in the morning or to school in the morning, and you get to work a little later because of it, those kids are your highest priority. And there's nothing wrong with that. So accept that
Yeah.
and work with it,
Yeah.
right? Maybe that fact that you have those kids and you go to the school every day and maybe you participate in something in the parent organization or you go to their games, that might be bringing you business. If you're fully open to bringing your whole self to work and bringing your whole self to the places you are outside of work, you can cross, I call it connecting the dots between the different parts of your life and expand your network.
Yeah.
You're like, if you're in DC and you're living in DC, and I've lived in DC, I know how DC is, you can expand your network in ways that just because, you met somebody at your kid's school and then that person introduced you to that person and all of a sudden you're having a meeting with somebody you couldn't get in to talk to before,
Yep. Yep.
or you get invited to a pool party for somebody's kid's 10th birthday and
Yeah.
the other person at the party is somebody who is interested in what you're doing, and all of a sudden you've got a new friend and it's opening doors all over the place.
I love that. I
And
love
we
that.
don't, when we do this work-life balance, lobotomize ourselves thing, one natural occurrence that happens from it, and it's dangerous, is people stop fully being themselves with people at work and vice versa. So, for instance, you don't want to go home and talk about work. So you go home frustrated and you're just like, oh, I'm fine. Everything's cool. Let's have dinner and just smile and pretend like everything's great.
Right.
And your spouse now doesn't have a full understanding of what's happening. And what taken to an extreme, it literally leads to people getting divorced
Yeah.
because they don't connect anymore.
Yeah.
And the flip side at work, somebody who doesn't share anything about their home life and doesn't make friends, like real friends at work, is never fully engaged there and ends up being that fungible person who leaves when the next pay raise is offered.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's kind of like the real life version of Severance, which
Yeah.
it's just like which what a crazy concept that show is. But that's kind of it makes sense. And Scott Galloway has said the exact same thing you're saying. This whole idea of work life balance is BS because the bottom line is it's all your life. They are interwoven. And trying to create a symphony versus just horns you play at this time, strings you play at this time, never shall you meet. It's just
Right.
it's not
Just
very practical.
be you all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
And if you can be you all the time and you can know what your priorities are and what you value, what matters the most, and you can carry that through all the parts of your life, and you can honor those priorities in your scheduling, you'll make sure the important things get done.
Yeah.
And frankly, if that means that you're not doing everything you need to do to be a billionaire, that's okay because it's not your priority to be a billionaire.
Right.
If it was your priority to be a billionaire, you probably wouldn't have had the kids in the first place,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. That's one of the things that I finally come to grips with is that, for the longest, and I've always been a pretty ambitious guy in the fact that I'm always trying to achieve, but I would never be that guy that like, that's why I didn't go into private equity. Even after I finished business school, even though I'm on the board of a holding company, I was never going to be the guy that was going to be out there doing raise tours and never home and working, going the route of investment banking and working 9 hours a week. I was going to put my kids through that because if you end up, yeah, you're making this 7 figures and all this, but your kids hate you, they don't see you, and really all you are to them is an ATM machine. I just never wanted that. Always, my first priority was always being dad, being there for them, and trying to make a good living and being known for that. That's, that I always on on my tombstone, it should be very simple. Really, really good dad. That's kind of the deal for me.
Yeah, so that's so you make sure you focus there.
Yeah.
And as far as the, scheduling types of things go, I am much more into understanding your workflows, your energy. Your energy is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I've noticed
And
that.
some ways we can tweak that by doing things like exercising at certain times of day, eating certain ways. Maybe when you have a heavy meal, you feel sluggish, but if you ate a salad, you wouldn't feel so sluggish. There are things like that too that you can look at when you analyze that journaling of your time and go, "Oh, I always have an energy slump at whatever time it is." And you realize that that's because you rush out of the house, you have a cup of coffee, you don't really eat anything until lunch, and at like 11 o'clock you're kind of sluggish. Well,
Yeah.
okay, maybe that means a snack, maybe it means that you eat lunch earlier, maybe it means you make sure to have breakfast, whatever that is for you. But there are, I mean, a million different tweaks you could make that as an individual will maximize the benefit of the time you're spending. And, what I tell people, and I absolutely believe this, if somebody does the things I'm telling them to do, they will gain 10 hours a week to do the things they love without quitting their job. And because they'll get more done at their job. And hopefully, if they're breaking down that work-life balance wall, they're doing things they love in their job as well as at home. So they're getting better and more in all parts of their lives.
I love it. I love it. All right. I would be remiss if I didn't give you the opportunity before we just chewed up an hour like that. So this has been awesome for me, Michelle. I hope that you've enjoyed it as well. But what I wanted to know is, and for the audience to know, should they decide to engage you, where do they learn more about you? What's that process look like? And what can they expect? Is this something, is there what's the framework? Is it 3 weeks, 6 weeks? Do you work in perpetuity until the person says, yeah, I'm good, Michelle. You've taught me to run. Now watch me sprint. How does that
Mm-hmm.
work?
Okay. So they can reach out to me by pulling out their phone right now if they're
Okay.
in the United States, texting the word clarity to 33777.
Okay.
And I'll give you a link for your show notes for people who, don't do this if you're driving, please. And what it does is it links them to a free community that I have, and that free community will give them that downloadable, the guided meditation and the journaling prompts I told you about, as well as another tool that I'll mention just very, very quickly. It's an analysis. You said you went to business school, so you kind of know about a SWOT analysis.
Sure.
I call this a SWORD analysis. It's your ninja tool.
Okay.
And it allows you to analyze your goals. And the D is for desire. The idea being you drill down, you get all that information about what do I have, what's the gap, what do I need, what are the opportunities will I get from it, what are the risks that could come from it, and how much do I really want it, 0 to 10, right now without thinking. Because one thing that I've realized in working with people is a lot of people carry around goals that no longer fit them. But they're still, for instance, let's say they think they need a graduate degree. They've built a successful business. They have a family. They love their life in general, but something in their head tells them that they're not good enough if they don't have a master's degree or they don't have that PhD or whatever. And so they're spending money every semester taking a class or two. They're spending time that they could be spending with their family, pursuing a degree they don't need. And they don't even really want it, but somebody somewhere told them that that mattered. And their self-esteem is telling them, I have to have that because I was told that when I was a little kid. Or my dad had one, so I need it too. Or, it's the expectation in my industry, but my industry is now being taken over by AI.
Right.
And I have a successful AI firm, but, I still need that graduate degree. So that kind of thing can be really helpful. And that analysis also is something that they can get access to there. If they are to work with me as a client, what I do is I bring people in for either individual or groups, and I work with them for 12 weeks. And we
Okay.
work through a program that takes them through a framework that helps them figure out all these things and then put together a plan that works for them personally.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Well, good deal. Well, please do send me that information. I'll include it in the show notes. And thank you for taking the time to have like a discovery session with me. I mean, there was
Yeah.
and to the listener, they should see. I mean, you just saw. I mean, you really helped me drill down on some things. And then what's really kind of almost comical at this point, because I feel like you've kind of become my therapist this morning. The person you just described about graduate school, that was this guy. I needed
Yeah.
the affirmation. I needed the validation rather that, even though I went to a a fine undergraduate school, Stephen F. Austin State University, Nacogdoches, Texas. Great little school, but I needed that SMU credential. I need to go to business
Hmm.
school. And I did it after I had started multiple businesses. I was already doing what a lot of my classmates wanted to ultimately do, but I needed that validation, Michelle. And so,
Yeah. Well, now you're in credential machine land, and it probably does help that you have the credential in DC, right? They care a lot about that stuff there.
they do.
So, but it just depends, and it depends what you want to do with it. So, you know, well, I'm really glad I could help.
Good.
And I would, I thank you for the opportunity to help you because
Yeah.
this is my happy place is connecting with people and helping them see those things and see that lighting up going on their face. And I saw that with you.
Well, I'm so grateful, and you are welcome back anytime. Anytime you have something that you want to announce, you want to use this platform, it is yours. Just reach out, and I would love to see you again.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle.